Hi everyone, I hope you all are well. My name is Aditya Nag. I am an incoming freshman at Stanford University and I'm originally from Dhaka, Bangladesh. As you might have already guessed, this video is mainly for people like me in the boat I was a year ago, as in international applicants who are approaching the US admissions process. But I also hope this video will be helpful for those who are trying to make a choice between different colleges, especially in the current times where the pandemic makes it nearly impossible for people to visit college campuses. Or if you're like an international applicant like me who's never been to the US, let alone the campus that he's going to be admitted in for the next 4 years. So yeah, I hope you guys find it helpful as well, and I hope you guys find this video useful. A lot of this video is going to entail my subjective opinions about how I went through the college admissions process, but there's not exactly a one-size-fits-all strategy when it comes to the US college admissions process, since it's so holistic. So take everything I say with a pinch of salt, ask other people before you make decisions, and try to crowdsource opinions from different people before you do anything. A bit about myself. So as you already know, I'm from Dhaka, Bangladesh, and I graduated from a private school in Dhaka, SFX Greenhalgh International School. If you're from Greenhalgh and you're watching this, shout out to Greenhalgh and the batch of 2020. At Greenhalgh, we follow the Cambridge A and O level system, which is the British curriculum. I personally had 4 subjects in my A levels. There were all the sciences: physics, chemistry, biology, and pure mathematics. And in my O levels, I had 9 subjects, which had, outside the sciences, I also had additional mathematics, English, Bengali, Bangladesh studies, and I think art. Yeah, and economics, my bad. So these were the subjects I had in my O and A levels. One thing to note, however, is that you won't intrinsically get a boost from following a certain curriculum. I personally know people who are from the public schools in Bangladesh. I know people who are from schools that follow the AP or the IB curriculum. I know people who've not essentially gone to school in the first place, and they were homeschooled and just gave the board exams. These are private candidates who got into great institutions in the US. So don't worry if you're not a conventional student going to a good school. It doesn't really matter. Your curriculum doesn't matter. What matters is the application that you put forth, and you, regardless of the context that you were born in or live in. During my application season, I gave the SAT and the SAT subject tests. I didn't give the ACT because I felt there weren't enough resources for me to practice, so I just gave these 2. I gave my SATs in the grade 11, I think during October. And I gave my SAT subject tests, 3 of them, in grade 12. It's around the same time. So my advice to you would be to take these standardized tests as soon as possible, so that you give yourself ample time to retake those exams. I didn't have to luckily retake those exams, so I was incredibly lucky in that way. But I gave myself ample time to, just in case, keep some time allocated for me if I wish to. I don't really want to say my scores, because I don't want them to be a benchmark for you to pursue in order to get into any good college. But let's just say in my SATs, I got a score above 1500, and in my SAT subject tests, I scored above 700. I took 3 SAT subject tests: 1 in physics, 1 in math 2, and another one in chemistry. The reason why I chose physics and math 2 was because a lot of the engineering majors that I wanted to apply to had physics and math 2 as a requirement in their application process for SAT subject tests. So if you're applying as an engineering major or a STEM major, do check up on the requirements before you apply. And I took chemistry because I felt comfortable in chemistry. One more thing, given the current pandemic that's going on, most schools for the 2020 to 2021 application cycle have refused to take the SATs, because many people cannot give the SATs during these circumstances, which is completely understandable. Many schools have gone SAT optional. So if your school is one of them, then don't worry about taking the SATs, rather invest that time in your ECAs. And otherwise, if you're from future batches, if you're watching this from future batches, a future admission cycle, I would just suggest to take the SAT and SAT subject test as early as possible. You can give the SAT in grade 11 because most of the knowledge that you need for the grammar and for the test is something that you already learned by that point. I would suggest you take the SAT subjects at the beginning of your grade 12 because most of the content is something that you've already learned, so you don't need to learn that again. If there is something to learn, you can learn it on your own pace after seeing the content of the syllabus, which I did myself. But there wasn't much for me to learn because a lot of that was already covered in my school syllabus. So yeah, try to take SAT subject tests in the things that you're good at and you will be fine with that. One more thing, I didn't receive any institutional scholarship at Stanford because I didn't apply for any because Stanford doesn't have such a system. Most of the grants that Stanford gives out is need-based, and I was lucky enough to have almost my entire cost of attendance waived by my need-based grant. So I'm really grateful for that, and I didn't need to apply for external scholarships. Firstly, I was part of the International Olympiad team of my country. So I was part of the National Biology Olympiad, and it was at the end of, I think, my 10th grade, I was chosen to be part of the international team that Bangladesh sent to take part in the International Biology Olympiad, the 4-person team. I did it again in grade 11, so I went there twice. Outside the Biology Olympiad, I took part in a few physics and math Olympiads, although I'd never reached the international level. It was limited to the national level. Outside these two, outside Olympiads, at my school, I was the president of the environmental club, the Green World Earth Club. I was the editor-in-chief of my science club, the FX13 Chrome Science Club. I was actively part of my debating society of my school. Outside school, I was also previously the R&D director and head of the R&D team of an external organization that worked in environmental activism, Urban Tomorrow. So yeah, these were the things that I was involved extensively in during my high school years. I was also part of a bit of the cultural committee of my school in terms of the musical band. One thing I want to mention is this isn't an exhaustive list of ECAs that you can possibly partake in. One of the things that I learned after getting admitted and seeing my batch of admitted students was that there is virtually no possible end to the things that you can possibly do and those that count as ECAs. Like, I know people who are admitted into Stanford who started their own podcasts. I know people who did their own independent research. I know people who started their own NGOs and organizations. I know people who started their own businesses. I know people from so many different backgrounds and from so many different roads of life that I honestly can't say what is an ECA and what isn't. So if any activity that you invest your time significantly in and worked over the years is an ECA, and you should list it out on your common application or whatever medium that application profile uses. So yeah, even if you help at your home, you should go and let the university know that this is an activity that you take part in, and you should proudly show to them that this is something that I've been investing my time in. Remember that you will be evaluated based on the context that you're from, so never be like worried or confused of whether to include or not an ECA or not. The common application, for example, allows I think 20 colleges at max, and there are some colleges like MIT which have a separate application portal. So you have to you can apply to as many as you can. Some people apply to more than 20. I personally applied to 16 colleges in the US because I felt that when I went beyond 16, I spread myself too thin and I couldn't afford the time to work on other applications and essays, so I limited myself to 16. If you can handle the workload, be sure to apply more than 16, but make sure to do it in such a way that you're not sacrificing on quality on individual applications, because US admissions are much harder when you're an international applicant. Your acceptance rates are abysmally lower, but a lot of it's helped if you actually put an effort into your application in terms of your essays and stuff. So yeah, try to not spread yourself too thin across too many admissions. Find the sweet spot in terms of the number of colleges you can apply to, and try to have a good mix of different colleges you will apply to. Domestic students use this tiering system, which they call safeties, targets, and reaches. You can probably search them up more on the internet, but just to like paraphrase it, safeties are schools which have a higher acceptance rate, more likely to take you in. Targets are schools in which students of your caliber usually get in, and reaches are schools that are like the cherries on the top of the US admissions process, who are extremely selective, and you have to have a significant amount of luck to get in as well. For international students, the list is a bit skewed towards reaches, so you should be more aware of these colleges that you're choosing, but still try to have a decent mix of different types of colleges. For example, it would be a good idea to apply to at least 2 safeties, 4 or more targets, and maybe 4 or more reaches. That's a good number to apply to. Again, remember, keep in count the number of applications you can actually apply to, because many of you will be applying to other institutions outside the US, so try not to spread yourself too thin across different institutions. First and foremost, the most important resource that I had during making my college list was essentially seniors. I personally knew a person who was fresh off the hook of the US college admissions process. Similar to that, if you have friends who are currently studying in US institutions, you can take advice from them. You can take some tips on to what colleges you should apply to, what can be considered as safeties, and what can be considered as targets and reaches. Remember that these students are often the most busiest because they have hectic schedules, so try not to bother them too much, respect their time, but they're oftentimes the most helpful people you can consult, so definitely keep them in mind. Number 2, you should go up and check online resources. There are plenty of online resources. If you're starting afresh, you should go check some basic YouTube series. If you're from Bangladesh, you can go up check out Brishti Apu's YouTube series on applying to the US colleges. But outside these, there are blogs on public forums, Reddit for example. There are a lot of resources. You can go up and search individual colleges for their acceptance rates depending on the school you're planning to get admitted in and stuff like that. You can do all of that. But remember, just one thing, first of all, it's better to contextualize your ideas. Just because a school has a certain number of high percentage of admitted students doesn't necessarily mean you should apply there, because there are other stuff like financial considerations to make. So ask around before you make any decision to apply to a specific college. And secondly, if you're consulting public forums, always remember that sometimes they can be demoralizing and discouraging, so be wary of that. Lastly, another important resource would be friends, because I personally felt my friends were an amazing group of people who helped me keep in check the deadlines and resources and documents and paperwork that I needed. They helped me a lot, in particular in the CSS profile that I had to submit to US colleges. So if you are one of those people, try to apply as a group. As an international applicant, the application process can be very isolating because we don't have the typical networks, typical support systems that US colleges have, and only a few out of the entire batch actually apply to colleges to a particular area or country. But try to find those group of people, hold each other accountable, keep each other informed of dates, and those really helped me submit my documents on time, to submit my applications on time, and they should do for you as well.